Hi, welcome back to Capacity TV. I'm Ben Wodecki, and I'm really, really pleased to be joined by Alison Matte from Schneider. How's it going?
Very good, thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Now, you were recently appointed, I'd say recently, a few months ago, Head of Sustainability at Schneider. Can you talk to us about your role, some of your wider roles as well?
Sure. So yes, I head up sustainability for our data center software, if you will. So my role consists of creating a strategy and a direction for how we can support and help customers facing their sustainability challenges through software, right? Can we evolve our software offers to be able to support new and incoming challenges, and how does software really play a role in addressing those sustainability challenges that our customers are facing when it comes to managing IT infrastructure and data center infrastructure?
So there's a lot of challenges at the moment in the industry, a lot of scale, a lot going on, so you must be very busy. Would you mind talking about some of the stuff that you're dealing with at the moment and how you're kind of navigating that, interest in scale right now? Yeah,
so data centers I feel are getting a little bad press, if you will, especially with this AI trend and the very overused word at this point. But at the end of the day, we need data centers to live and to do our jobs and to have our regular comfort. So what we're really seeing right now is an increase in regulations that are incoming, especially in Europe. Europe being really key, in the European Commission cracking down on data centers and their energy consumption and their environmental impact, right? So we're seeing customers face challenges when it comes to reporting and addressing these regulations, but also looking at the costs, right, of running and operating a data center and seeing where they can optimize, where can they reduce costs, where can they reduce also their impact on the environment, right? So they're looking at multiple angles, and we're really trying to focus on all of them. So on the resiliency of just their infrastructure, on the sustainability of their infrastructure and their operations, but also on the security, which is key, right? Because security of any data is really at the heart of any data center. So we really take aim at addressing all three of those holistically.
So how do you go about approaching those? Because I've seen a lot of operators looking at things like Scope 3 emissions. That's kind of a big thing at the moment in terms of wider supply chain. But what is it that you and the wider Schneider team are saying, hang on a minute, these are the sort of techniques that you guys should be looking at that would not only apply to individual areas, but those holistic as well?
So there's really a couple of ways that we're helping customers, especially when it comes to them starting on this sustainability journey. There's three ways of addressing it. You have to strategize, right? You have to build a strategy. You have to digitize, so look at all of the data that you have, and then you can decarbonize, right? So those are really the three key pillars. But then there's all this data, right? Environmental data that's very important, right? Sure. To making decisions and especially when it comes to scope and actually monitoring your scope 1, 2, and 3. And that's why we actually introduced this new environmental data program just last year. And that program is really around the full life cycle of products and how we can provide more data and transparency to our customers on all of our Schneider Electric products.
I want to ask you about that program because I can't say for yourself, but a lot of the operators I've spoken to jump straight to decarbonisation. They think we need to switch to renewables, but they don't think about it kind of step by step. How does that tie in and actually help those guys make a decision, make a sensible decision, I should say?
Yeah, so it all goes back to a basic question, right? Sure. When you have data centers or IT infrastructure, do you know what assets you have under management, right? Do you know what kind of assets and how many of them you have? And do you know the impact of that? And we've actually found, and other research has found, that most people, around 43%, don't even know the impact of their IT infrastructure when it comes to carbon footprint. And so it really starts with that basic statement of, well, what do I have under management? And then what is the impact of those, right? So are they recyclable? Can I use them longer, right? Can I use them better? And then what can I do with that infrastructure when it's at end of life, right? Because that actually is a big step that can help them in their further long-term journey when it comes to decarbonization.
So that's one way that you guys are helping, but there's a lot that's actually going under the radar in terms of how they're decarbonizing. I'm a big fan of the increased use in biogases. That's a big thing that not a lot of operators are doing, but it's starting to increase. Is there anything that you actually think, this is going under the radar? Some operators are doing, X, Y, and Z. What are you kind of looking at?
Yeah, so I think at the end of the day, it goes down to visibility of every step of your operations, right? What is coming in when it comes to electricity and power? Is it clean power? What's the energy mix? What's that impact, right? How much water am I using within my data center when it comes to cooling, right? Is it potable water? What am I doing with that water once I'm done with it? And then when it comes to the hardware and the physical assets, what are those assets? What's that impact of those assets? And then what can we do once they're end of life? And all that can be managed through software, right? And that's really key. Software is becoming a major player when it comes to getting that visibility into all of the operations of a data center and an IT infrastructure.
I didn't even think of that with the end of life stuff. That's actually quite interesting because you see a lot of decommissioned jobs going in now as newer hardware comes in. How does that tie into the end of life stuff? Because a lot of operators are looking at that right now.
Yeah, so it comes in a couple of ways, right? When you look at software, especially some software like DCIM, right? You have digital twins that you can use, and you can virtualize your infrastructure.
Sure.
And through those digital twins, you can look at the impact of how your infrastructure would change if you modify maybe one rack, right? If you take out one rack and replace it with new assets, and see that impact on your capacity, your power capacity, and your cooling capacity. So you can actually model your replacements of hardware through software, and to see what that will do to your operations at the end of the day. And then you can also activate services for rip and replace and for takebacks, for example, when you do decide to change your products.
Okay, so that kind of ties nice into my next question, Alison, around retrofitting, right? Obviously, we've got to make use of the space that we've got, but at the same time, actually, taking the old and using that again. How does that kind of tie into what you guys are doing with sustainability?
Yeah, so the big question we're asking, and our customers are asking us as well, is why do I need to change, right, my hardware? Why can't I use my hardware longer? Right, and that's something that we've been working on for over 20 years. Is can we actually eco-design our products to ensure that we can update their firmware, we can replace certain components, so we don't actually have to replace the full product, and instead reuse and repair, and in some cases remanufacture hardware and put them back on the supply chain to be able to reduce that impact at the end of, because why should you have to change your UPS every 2 years? That's a question that we're getting from our customers, and we're saying, well, you can, but we can also help you extend that life through either services, software monitoring, to ensure that there's no critical impact to your infrastructure.
It ties in nicely with the DeepSeek conversation around using, you can reuse and continue using older hardware if you refine architecture some way. So that's actually quite a nice way of looking at it.
Yeah, and there's things like battery wear models to see if your battery is going to fail. There's different predictions, right, that we can make through the use of machine learning and AI, and use that to our advantage, right, to be able to elongate the lives of assets.
Alison, I'd just like to end on a question around sustainability and kind of outlook, because at the top you said it's been getting a bit of a bad rap. I'm kind of keen to work out whether you think there's been a vibe shift in the industry, but also, there's a lot of scaling going on right now. How is this industry going to look in 18 months? Is it just going to double down, or do you think that bad rap's going to continue? Can you talk me through that a bit?
It's not an easy question to answer.
Sure.
It's quite a fluctuating market, as we can see in the news and through analyst research, and we're monitoring it day by day. But regulations aren't going to go away.
Sure.
Right. I think this year is kind of a reality check, if you will, for a lot of data center operators and owners, where they're saying, well, we have all these regulations coming in and we have all these costs, right? what data do we have to be able to support these and report on to our CFO for cost purposes, to regulators when it comes to government regulations, to be able to operate, right? And so I think in the next 18 months, we're actually going to see a shift of mindset where we have an obligation, right, to do better, to reduce our impact, but we also have to face the reality that we might not all have that data today, but we need a path to obtain that data to be able to get that tomorrow, right, and to start making changes as that data comes in. So I think this shift is coming more in the sense of sustainable operations and how can we be more conscious of our impact and less so on build unconsciously, right? And without looking at that full picture of what am I driving when it comes to sustainability and environmental impact.
And that way it goes beyond just looking at decarbonisation as a whole, right?
Exactly. We have to look at all assets of ESG at the end of the day.
It's honestly, it's a busy time right now, and honestly, you've got a lot of work on your hands, so I appreciate you coming in and talking to us on this. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. And there's more on Capacity, of course, Capacity TV, Capacity News. Check out Capacity Media and the wider channel for more content like this. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you.